Welcome to The Explainer. Okay, today we are dropping right into a super high-stakes reality. We're talking about the mechanics of a civilizational reset. And look, we aren't just talking about a bad decade here or some localized historical collapse. No, we're talking about the ultimate threshold. Right now, humanity is pushing up against boundaries that honestly have the potential to completely rewrite or literally erase our existence. If you want to understand the sheer scale of what our species is facing and the cosmic hurdles we've got to jump over just to survive, you are in exactly the right place. Because a civilizational reset isn't just some sci-fi trope. It's a measurable repeating pattern where complex systems outgrow their foundations and just snap back to zero. We're going to explore every single level of this phenomenon today, from local collapses all the way up to the ultimate limits of the universe.
Okay, let's dive into this. Humanity is actively leveling up. We're moving toward what astrophysicists call a Type 1 civilization. To wrap our heads around why this is such a big deal, we gotta look at the Kardashev scale. Basically, it's a way to measure a civilization's technological advancement based on the sheer amount of energy it can use. A Type 1 civilization, that is a species that has successfully harnessed all the energy of its home planet. I mean, every ray of sunlight, every gust of wind, every single geothermal vent. It's a massive developmental milestone. We're talking a level of technological and energetic mastery our ancestors couldn't even fathom. But here's the catch. This transition phase we are in right now, it is incredibly dangerous. We are walking a totally fragile razor's edge. As we build more powerful tech and connect our globe tighter and tighter to harness all this energy, our margin for error literally shrinks to zero. We've essentially got the destructive power of a mature civilization, but we're still going through the chaotic, growing pains of an adolescent species.
So the crucial point is, this deeply dangerous transition phase brings us face to face with a theoretical cosmic bottleneck. It's known as the Great Filter. Because our current developmental leap is so absolutely fraught with risk, we have to confront the existential dread that, well, we might not actually make it. The Great Filter acts like a hidden trapdoor, lurking somewhere in the timeline of every advanced species. It asks a pretty chilling question. What if the reason we haven't seen sprawling, galaxy-spanning civilizations in our telescopes yet is because this trapdoor wipes them out before they can truly reach the stars? What if the very act of becoming a high-tech, super-capable species inherently triggers a self-destruct sequence? Whether we're talking nuclear war, engineered pandemics, or runaway artificial intelligence, the filter posits that advanced tech almost always outpaces a species' ability to safely manage it. It's a heavy thought, right? But understanding this bottleneck is absolutely the key to surviving it.
To really grasp why this filter exists in the first place, we actually need to zoom in. We need to shift from these vast, universal mysteries down to the specific, nuts and bolts reality of how we currently live. We've got to look at the science of fragility within high-density systems, and a high-density system is exactly what we've built today. I mean, think about it. Everything is interconnected, hyper-efficient, incredibly fast-moving, and tightly packed. We completely rely on just-in-time supply chains, deeply integrated global economies, and massively centralized power grids. But here's the thing. The more complex and dense a system gets, the more single points of failure it creates. And when a system is this dense, a failure in one tiny corner doesn't stay isolated. No way. It ripples out, threatening the stability of the entire structure. Think about how a single blocked canal can just instantly halt global shipping, or how a microchip shortage in one country shuts down car manufacturing worldwide. Complex systems trade resilience for efficiency, and that makes them acutely, terrifyingly prone to sudden, cascading collapse.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is that this fragility, it isn't actually a new concept at all. Ancient societies clearly understood the mechanics of civilizational collapse. It's really only our methods of destruction that are new. Take ancient China, for example. They had this deeply ingrained concept known as the mandate of heaven. Basically, when a ruling dynasty suffered a massive ecological failure, like prolonged famine, devastating floods, or severe resource depletion, the people believed the rulers had literally lost the mandate of heaven, and that inevitably led to a total collapse of that civilization. They inherently recognized that their survival was strictly tied to the physical limits and stability of their world. But compare that primitive recognition to today. Today, our ecological vulnerabilities are perfectly matched by our technological ones. We've effectively traded the slow generational collapse of an ancient agrarian empire for something much faster and exponentially more severe. Actually, scratch that. It's worse than severe. We're now capable of triggering a collapse in a single afternoon, like say through a World War III simulation at a massive military complex. And this brilliantly illustrates just how terrifyingly fast things can go wrong. 1. A single, solitary number. That is literally all it took to nearly end the world. Deep inside the Cheyenne Mountain nuclear bunker, a sprawling, hyper-advanced, high-density military system was basically brought to its knees by one tiny anomaly, a single simulation tape.
Back in the late 1970s, a training tape was mistakenly loaded into the early warning system's active computers. It falsely told the network that a massive nuclear strike was incoming. The alarms blared. Interceptor pilots scrambled to their jets on the tarmac. The president's doomsday plane was immediately prepped for takeoff. A massive multi-billion-dollar network of advanced defensive technology nearly executed the end of humanity simply because it couldn't distinguish a training exercise from reality. We were minutes away from an accidental nuclear apocalypse, minutes away from wiping ourselves out before ever having the chance to reach the stars, and all because of one misplaced tape triggering a fatal flaw in a high-density system.
Okay, take a breath. Because it's really important to realize that the Cheyenne Mountain incident wasn't just some freak isolated accident. When we pull back and look at the larger macroscopic picture, we start to see that these localized structural failures, they're part of a much broader, much more terrifying cosmic pattern. This isn't just about one computer glitch in the Cold War or one failed harvest in an ancient dynasty. It's about a fundamental structural vulnerability that actively scales upward alongside our technological progress. It's like this. As our civilization grows in physical size, energy consumption, and systemic density, the disasters that threaten to unmake us scale up at the exact same rate. We are locked into a cosmic pattern of scaling disasters. What that means is our capacity to solve problems is constantly trapped in a desperate, high-stakes race against our capacity to create new, increasingly complex existential threats.
Let's move to and see how this builds, because this cosmic pattern scales upward in very distinct, predictable phases. Think of it like an escalator of doom. Step 1 is localized disasters. This is where a developing species first starts hitting physical walls, mostly through resource depletion. A society cuts down way too many trees, overfarms its local land, and bam, the regional civilization collapses. But if a species manages to survive that and expand globally, they hit step 2. Planetary disasters. Now the scale grows massively. The high-density system covers the entire globe, leading to things like global climate change or engineered pandemics. The threat isn't local anymore. It threatens the entire planetary biosphere. And get this, if a civilization somehow successfully manages its home planet, the pattern still doesn't stop. It scales right up to step 3, universal catastrophes. This involves facing the ultimate physical limits of the universe itself, things like entropy, the inescapable gradual decline of all matter and usable energy into total disorder and chaos. It's wild to think about, but every single time we level up as a species, the existential threat levels up right there with us.
This trajectory forces us to ask a pretty silent, heavy question. If the disasters always scale proportionally, if high-density systems are inherently fragile, and if the Great Filter is out there waiting, is this the seemingly inevitable climax, the total end of the world as we know it? When you really look at the historical timeline, from ancient ecological collapse to near-miss nuclear annihilation, all the way up to planetary and eventually universal boundaries, it can sometimes feel like a developing intelligence is simply marching toward a predetermined expiration date. It's a stark reality to sit with. I mean, if a single simulation tape can almost end it all during our technological infancy, how does humanity successfully navigate against the infinitely scaling disasters of the cosmos? It forces a deep, almost uncomfortable philosophical inquiry. Is intelligence a universal survival trait, or is it simply a temporary, self-limiting anomaly? But before we just surrender to despair here, we need to execute a total paradigm flip. Is this inevitable doom, or is it just a civilizational survival test for a developing species? What if the Great Filter, the scaling disasters, the incredible fragility of our transition to a Type 1 civilization, what if all of it isn't an execution sentence, but a final exam? This is the ultimate reframe. We aren't just waiting around to be wiped out. No, we're a developing species facing the exact high-stakes survival test that any intelligence in the cosmos must face in order to earn its place among the stars. We possess the unique awareness to actually see the filter approaching, and you know what that means? It means we might just possess the ingenuity to navigate right through it. The challenge is undeniably massive, for sure, but so is our potential. And that leaves us with the most important question of all. Are we ready to pass the test?